Thank you so much for being here with us. We're with work.com. Congratulations, first and foremost, your Sundance first like feature. Super duper exciting. So tell me, like, why this film? Why now? And why is this kind of the subject of your first feature film?
Well, first of all, thanks for the invite to talk with us. It is crazy. It's our first feature. It's our first doc. It's our first time working together. Um, Mostly because we've been friends for a long time. Rebecca came to my hometown in Michoacan, where the film takes place, for Christmas, and there's a Christmas rodeo that happens every year. So when she was there, she was like, "This is cool."
Yeah,
Anyone else should talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, this first of all, we came to filmmaking through this story. We are both artists. Previously, Efrain is a visual artist. I am a poet. Um, but yeah, when we were at the rodeos together, I was just really struck by this sort of super like hyper masculine performance that was happening and the community there. And we just started talking. This was a long time ago. This was like 8 years ago. We just started talking about doing something there. And Efrain told me, yeah, like let's do it, but like let's make it gay. And that's like where it came from. And everything happened just really organically. I mean, we hadn't made a doc before, we hadn't made a feature film before, but we just sort of everything kind of came by our our intuition, like how our collaboration, how our friendship really like grew into a collaboration through this story. You know, Efrain is also a protagonist in the story. Um, and their yeah, like their story is how we follow the narrative of cruising through this rodeo and finding these amazing people that we ended up working with, and creating these portraits of. And yeah, so
Thank you. I think going off of that too, it reminds me a lot, even watching the trailer, of like Alejandro Jodorowsky and kind of that multidisciplinary approach. So how do you think that influenced the film and kind of creating it for both of you, kind of being multidisciplinary artists?
It definitely has like a strong presence for what the film ended up being. Um, I do performance art and like installation art with lights and sound, so there's all of these like surreal moments of the film that depict the queer subconscious in town, and they ended up turning out very similar to what the shows are, and yeah, it's just like visual narrative, visual. Uh,
yeah, I mean, for me, kind of coming from more of a poetic background, like the poetry and cinema feel inherently very similar. And the way that we ended up, constructing the story is so much about metaphor and so much about how, different pieces echo off of each other, which in a verite doc, it's a really fun thing to be able to play with because we couldn't anticipate how that was going to happen at the beginning, right? Um, but I do think that I really do think that us coming from outside of the industry, because we didn't know exactly what we were supposed to be doing, and so it gave us a lot of room to do whatever we felt was right with this film.
I think even going off of that, of looking sort of like, kind of outsider communities and how we're creating art, like how do you think that sort of influence also plays into the film? Because obviously you're having this sort of machismo culture, but then we're looking at a queer subtext to it. Do you think that there's kind of a intermingling of that?
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like this very traditional macho rodeo, it's been happening for a century at this point. and the whole time there's been gay stuff happening, you
Yeah.
know. So so they like hypermasculinity and homosexuality go hand in hand, you know. So it's just like for me it was very interesting to like pay attention to those little details and use the Super 8 film that we use in the camera as that specific lens. You know, it's like the queer eye that is showing you the subtleties in like almost like the femininity within the macho.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, we talk a lot about how, yeah, wherever there's a super, gender rigid place, there's always the opposite going on there, right? Like wherever there's a hyper masculine environment, there's going to be, like queer shit going on.
Yeah, for sure.
But also, I think what we found through this film was not just, queerness like surviving on the margins, but the way that it's been integrated into this community as well. I mean, you see that through some of our characters. I don't want to give too much away, but um, I think in a time where things feel extremely polarized and this sort of yeah, kind of like rigid masculine ideal is coming back into the culture a lot. What Penjamillo shows, what the town shows, what these rodeos show is not that. It's actually how things are able to exist together simultaneously when they want to, and they want to in these rodeos. So
You. So kind of touching on what you just discussed of the sort of theatricality of the rodeo, right? It's almost like a form of drag. I mean, we at work.com cover a ton of drag and kind of queer art in that way. So how do you think that performance has sort of played into the community, into what you're seeing and into what's in the film?
It is such a drag performance to go to the rodeo as like dressing up as a cowboy. You know, it's like my like um my pop punk friends from my hometown, you know, like when the Christmas rodeo comes, we put on our cowboy hats and we dress up as cowboys, and we never do that. You know, like that's not our day to day, even just lifestyle. But we, when we go to these jaripeos, it's like, okay, we're gonna be cowboys for today, you know, and getting wasted, and we even like have like the cowboy accent in those days.
yeah, I mean, also something um that was kind of a spark for the film, but didn't end up kind of being an integral part of it in the end was that these Christmas rodeos happen because this area of Michoacan, there's a huge diaspora community. People come back for Christmas from the States, and that's part of the reason why the rodeos are so big. Um, but it really felt like sort of teaching a diaspora community like how to be a Mexican cowboy. It almost felt like everything was amplified for that community specifically. And so there is where, there's the level of performance of just how you're performing gender, but there was also just there was another level of performance with a huge population that had left and come back, and um yeah, like this is how you be a Mexican cowboy, this is how you be a Mexican man. Another part of the film, I mean, that you find with a lot of our kind of tertiary characters is that n- no one can really live up to that ideal. It's everyone's performing it, but I think what part of what we wanted to say in the film, what we found in the film was that even the people who, even like the writers, right? Like the people who are sort of like living as close to this archetype as possible, it's an impossible archetype to live up to. So there's always a level of performance in it.
Like going off of that even, How do you think the kind of performance of gender in our society as a whole kind of plays into that? And do you see kind of, you were talking about the diaspora coming back, like is there a Western kind of confluence that's now coming in because of that? Do you find that it's still staying more traditional, or how are those kind of factors integrated as well?
I think it's like getting intermingled so much. You can see it in one of our protagonists, Joseph, who is this fashion diva, with like long acrylic nails, bedazzled cowboy hat, just like leather corset. It's like such an amazing just person to be amazed by. And I think it is because of this like globalization that we see. We have the internet, we have people coming like back and forth from the US to our town, and he sees that and he like is comfortable being that, and then the people in town see him and they start getting comfortable with that around.
Yeah, I mean, I have to also say, um, you know, Efrain also like left Michoacan. We met when we were baby punks in Seattle, and something that they always tell me is, when they were in Seattle, they were like, "This is what queerness is. Like, this is a form of queerness." And that was, I think, I mean, that was a big moment for you as well, right? So it's, yeah, I think it's a very common experience for people. I mean, anywhere, but who come back and forth from the community um of things kind of opening up in a way. And what's really cool about it is how people are stay very traditional, but also are very accepting. Um, People want to keep the community together there, and if that means, allowing people, people who have a very different kind of gender expression, who are not so kind of traditionally macho, that that seems to be, in at least in more recent years, very okay, because it's about keeping the community together. It's about contributing to the community, right?
I think maybe perhaps throughout the process of making the film, I know you had said like 8 years ago initially, you'd kind of gotten the idea from kind of going initially. How have you seen kind of the young queer like ranchero identity shift, if it has? Like, how do you think it's evolved? How do you think it's kind of been maybe more cemented within this community? And kind of what are the changes and like how kind of steadfast is it?
I think it like as stagnant as it might feel from a distance, there's definitely these like bright flashes of color that are celebrated, with with still the very traditional old men and like even young men that are just like very straight and macho. There's still the groups of younger queer folks that are part of the town, and they grew up going to these jaripeos and they still want to go there, but now in their own flesh with their pink cowboy hats, and people are embracing of that. Joseph, our protagonist, he's the president of the church of his village, so like I think that says so much of how the community is embracing this culture. Yeah.
I think you said.
And I think that's a phenomenal thing to see. And I think it's interesting to kind of see in more recent years kind of the confluence of religion with queer identity and how that's hopefully in the kind of what we're seeing becoming more acceptable and hopefully will continue to do so. Shifting gears a little bit, you are at Sundance. Congratulations, massive achievement. How does it feel? And especially being like in the next generation showing, like how is it feeling to be here?
It's been a blast. The 3 days that feel like 3 weeks uh, have been amazing. All our friends are here. Create the film was created as a project of love. It's like friends coming to the jaripeos. All of the crew is our close friends, the DP, the sound guy, now the composers, uh, and we all went with just the idea of making a friends film that snowballed into being here at this point. So now having all of our best friends here at Sundance. I was gonna say fucking Sundance. No, but like being with all my best friends at fucking Sundance is it's a dream come true, especially in the next category. It's one of my favorites, so it's just like really, really, it's so exciting.
I'm sorry, it's that Efrain's family is outside right now, so we
We got friends.
um yeah, come in, come. This is also just so great. It's like Efrain's family is also like my family, and the fact that they could be here with us at Sundance is just so um but yeah, it's bizarre being here, but kind of in like the best way. It's just like it's it's amazing the reception that we've gotten for this film that was, like Efrain said, just really a project of love, like a first time collaboration between us, and it has just spoken to so many people, and it's yeah, it's just really touching.
Cool. All right. So, okay, WERRRK.com, obviously, we're very much so predominantly queer platform. So, very interested for both of you what you're hoping that queer folks and particularly queer youth take away from seeing this film.
What I keep thinking is this self-acceptance that is particularly hard to acknowledge in a small town, but with this project I realized that it's not just from a small town in Mexico, but a small town in the US, a big town in somewhere else, like a big city. So it's like we're in the same kind of struggle, and it's way easier than we think, than what we make it feel for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we really wanted this film to like speak to queer rural youth, because even though it's so specific to the town that Efrain grew up in, it became very clear to us like we encountered people from China, from Alabama, and when we talked about the film, everyone was just like, I know exactly what you mean. Um, and so yeah, I think that's a group of people that we really wanted to make feel seen through this film, and yeah, I hope it works.
And also to like take away this idea that a small town in Mexico is antiquated, and if you're queer there, you're gonna be beaten. It's like we really are progressing as a community and as culture, so we got to celebrate that as well.
I think that's always something we're celebrating. So, final question. Is there anything about the film that you have not been asked by anyone so far that you'd like to talk about, that you're kind of dying to talk about, so to speak? No.
Yes, we haven't really talked about the music of the film, which is a very important element for us. First of all, because in the Jaripeos, there's literal walls of speakers that are playing banda music from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. without a single minute of stopping. There's like three bands, one after the other. In the interludes, there's music, and it's this, just very traditional music that is just classic from Mexico. And our amazing composers, Marton Mora and Emilia Zeta, grab those elements and stripped them into creating what is now the soundtrack of the film.
Yeah, I mean, the sound on this film is such a place of like love and collaboration and innovation that we had no idea that it was going to be like that when it started. But Luisa Almaguer, who is a trans musician from Mexico City, does our like signature song for the film. We, techno and banda, we have just continuously found ways to merge them throughout the film. Our sound designers, Maha and Frosty, did an incredible job. And yeah, everyone should come see it in a theater because it sounds great.
Absolutely. Don't miss it. Efraín, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time and congratulations. This is such a huge accomplishment. And we're very excited to see the film across theaters in the US and the world very, very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.